All right, we're going to shift gears here and talk about kind of an evergreen topic, because I think I need a few more of these evergreen topics. I think I need to capture people's attention with these sort of constant questions that people ask about the issue of abortion. And I want to sort of focus our attention, and this has been in the news more and more, on the rights of kids to have abortions. And I should say the permissions that different states give to kids, the rights that different states give to kids to have abortions without parental knowledge, without parental consent, without parental notification. And the kind of bizarre double standard our society plays with children, treating them, I think rightly on the one hand, as minors, incapable of making various kinds of decisions, but on the other hand, treating them so much like adults. Okay, now I was prompted to think about this by some protest in some red state or other, people protesting in favor of transgenderism and allowing students to transition their gender in opposition to their parents' desires. And one of the protesters had a sign saying, kids should be trusted to do what's best for them. You shouldn't be allowed to make decisions for people whose bodies you don't own.
Irony. Irony of ironies.
Right. Now, I guess I wouldn't say that I own my children or own their bodies, but certainly nobody else is paying for them other than me. I do pay for everything that goes into their mouths. I do pay for all the clothes on their backs. It's kind of, that kid kind of belongs to me more than he belongs to anybody else, certainly. And I just want to talk about this mindset, because this is the mindset that animates most left-wing states, including California, and how they deal with minors wanting to have abortions. So, I mean, Jonathan, you've talked about this a lot, the dichotomy in California between tanning salons and abortion.
Yes.
So explain what California, how this came about with tanning salons and how it relates to abortion. I know this is a favorite talking point of yours.
It is, very much so. So the whole idea being here that California loves to, as much as they say, oh, we're a freedom state. Gavin Newsom, when he was advertising last year, he actually was attacking Ron DeSantis, saying, come join us.
California is
the
a freedom state. Yeah, exactly.
You can come and get your abortions and you can do all this stuff. California has no problem whatsoever. In fact, they love to legislate exactly what their citizens do with their bodies.
Right.
They love to legislate and say, well, you cannot smoke necessarily above a certain or below a certain age.
And particularly paternalistically mandating what children may or may not do, even if their parents consent to it.
Correct. So there's all sorts of other ones, but on that issue specifically, the most egregious thing that is simplest for people to grasp is California passed this law several years ago that says tanning salons are illegal for use by anyone under the age of 18. Right. And the idea being that, well, can a child really consent to the use of tanning salons? Can they really understand? Look at the dangers, long-term possibilities of cancer and all these other things.
Tanning salons are unequivocally bad for your health.
Right.
There's nothing. You look better, and that's other than that, they're terrible for your health.
It's the Sharon Girardi Full Employment Act.
Right,
basically.
exactly. My mom, dermatologist, Dr. Sharon Girardi. Nope, don't go to tanning salons. Bad idea.
And the idea, though, being that California recognizes in this situation minors. Now, they didn't go so far as to ban them outright and say that adults can't go to them if they want to destroy their bodies, they want to, harm themselves.
Sure.
All right, that's fine. But minors, their brains are still developing.
Right.
They cannot necessarily grasp the full consequences of their actions.
The long-term harms versus short-term benefits calculus.
There's a reason that also generally, I've not heard anybody say beyond tanning salons that someone under the age of 18 should be able to get a tattoo without parental consent. I think, actually, I don't even know this for sure. I don't know if a
think you
tattoo
can.
parlor,
Yeah.
if you could get a tattoo without parental consent. I don't think you can get one. Maybe you can get one with parental consent.
Producer Colton, look this up. Can you get a Jonathan? Look this up. Somebody,
Yeah.
can you get a tattoo in California if you're a minor? Anyway,
But
regardless,
the
in
idea of-
California,
yeah.
if you are 17 years and 360 days old, and you want to go to a tanning salon with your mom so that you can look good for the prom, you are not allowed to do it. California says no, it is illegal for you to do it, even with your parents' consent. Even going with your mom, you may not go.
Okay, so John, no. Pursuant to Section 653 of the Penal Code in California, a client shall be at least 18 years of age to be offered or to receive a tattoo or permanent cosmetics application regardless of parental consent. So they treat tattoos the same way as they treat the tanning salons.
Right.
It is illegal. You are not allowed to perform a tattoo on someone under the age of 18.
Yeah.
Because it's a permanent alteration.
Right. Exactly.
No going back. No take back.
Right. Exactly. And now that is actually pretty consistent with how American English law views minors. Okay. People who are not at the age of majority. Kids can't sign contracts. Okay. Kids are not allowed to sign most kinds of contracts. Kids are not allowed normally to get married. In California, you can get married as a minor, but only with parental consent. As a minor, you can enter the military, but it's only with parental consent. Kids can't consent to most forms of medical treatment. I mean, even I always bring up this example. Kobe Bryant, when he was drafted into the NBA, he was drafted right out of high school.
Right.
He signed his first contract with the Lakers. He did not sign his first contract with the Lakers. His parents had to sign it for him because he wasn't 18 yet. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's just crazy.
we have this standard in American law, basically, that kids can't make long-term, binding, serious decisions. And the most classic example of this being minors cannot consent to sexual activity. That's the whole basis of statutory rape. And it's amazing to me that people still do this, that, you know, and usually this is in the context of people making creepy comments about female teachers molesting male students. It's usually, yeah, well, he was willing to do it. So yeah, it doesn't matter if he's willing.
Right.
He's a minor, therefore he can't meaningfully consent. He's too young and stupid to consent to sexual activity. So, however, when it comes to abortion, and this is the big turn in this whole segment, when it comes to abortion in California, we take the posture that all of a sudden, this child who was not capable of making the decision to do the thing that leads to you becoming pregnant, who doesn't have the capacity to consent to sex, has the capacity to make the decision entirely on her own, excluding her parents or legal guardians from the decision entirely, has the right to decide whether or not to have a surgical abortion, a potentially life-altering decision where there are long-term benefits versus harms to be weighed. And we take the default posture, and that's the thing that I find almost most offensive about this. Look, I could understand a situation where the argument that's made by the pro-choice side is, well, a parent could be abusive towards a child when they find out their child is pregnant. The child could be feel threatened for her life or her safety if she comes out to her parents saying that she's that she wants to have an abortion. And I think, though, you have to make a decision as a state. Well, what's our default going to be? Is our default going to be that parents should know about it unless there's a credible threat to the kid's safety? Or should it be the default be that the parents shouldn't know about it unless the minor decides to tell them? Like, what's our default going to be here? What's
you have
the
exception
default
that swallows
posture?
the rule in a lot of these cases.
Right. And I would have to say, I think the default posture when a 14-year-old is pregnant, your default posture should obviously be the parent should be involved in the decision. The parent should, absolutely the parent should be involved. So that's sort of the legal structure of why California does this. They basically take this position that it's totally inconsistent with most of the rest of American law when it comes to how we view minors and their ability to make decisions. And I feel like we're starting to creep in this regard.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So first it's minors can make decisions of their own regarding abortion. Now, all of a sudden, anything having to do with LGBT, transgenderism, etc., all of a sudden, parents are getting excluded from those kinds of decisions because they fall in the field of reproductive health somehow. And it really makes me wonder, where do statutory rape laws go if this is the logical premise you've established, that the long-term decisions about reproduction, long-term decisions about whether or not to have a baby, long-term decisions about hormonal health treatments or surgical interventions that could lead to permanent sterilization. If children are capable to make those decisions governing their bodies or governing their reproduction, at a certain point, how do statutory rape laws make sense? And I feel as though it's always among more liberal-leaning people that the push comes to lower the age of consent, lower the age of consent, lower the age of consent. Go more easy on people engaged in statutory, all those kind of criminal justice reform things, sort of bleeding heart ACLU liberals. Treating defendants so poorly. How are you prosecuting, an 18-year-old who has sexual relations with his 17-year-old girlfriend? And it starts there, a more reasonable, situation like that, reasonable in scare quotes, and then it extends and extends and extends and extends and extends. And I really fear for where that line of reasoning will go. We'll be back with our closing thoughts on this right after the break. This is Right to Life Radio. Right to Life Radio. All right, Jonathan, let's wrap up this topic of schools. Basically this topic of children deciding to have abortions without parental consent. I'm going to bring this home locally. How there are local programs in Fresno, okay? If you think that this discussion about minors having abortion is like very foreign to you, I understand that, we've had Linda Talia on this show talking about her experiences at the sidewalk. She's encountered kids from Fresno area high schools walking to Planned Parenthood, sent there by school administrators. She's encountered this phenomenon of the Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission having a shuttle service to drive kids from their Fresno Unified campus to their clinic in downtown Fresno to get contraceptives, morning after pills, stuff like that, to get abortion referrals. All right. So I just want to emphasize these ideas that your kids are not your own, that your kids should make their own decisions about these lifelong, life-altering things. This is not the refuge of ultra-liberal schools in San Francisco or Los Angeles or something. This stuff is happening like right here,
in our backyard,
right now in Fresno. Yeah. And the mindset that, and again, I just want to emphasize this, not to sound like, tinfoil hat, conspiracy theorist, lunatic. I really think there is a movement afoot to expand the rights of kids to consent to more and more and more stuff involving their sexuality, involving their bodily autonomy, and creep with a lot of liberal criminal justice reform stuff, slow creeping towards lowering and lowering and lowering the age of consent. I think some of these people, look, I try to assume good intentions of people who oppose us on the pro-choice side. I don't want to think they're all horrible people.
Sometimes it's hard, but
they support horrible things, certainly. And one of these horrible things that I feel like they're getting closer to endorsing is going from laissez-faire blah attitude about teenagers having sex to getting to a point of almost saying that teenagers have a right to have sex. And if teenagers have a right to have sex, that means that adults have a right to have sexual activity with them. And I think that is a terrifying, extremely evil world. Just gonna land the plane on that. That'll do it for Right to Life Radio. We'll see you next time on Power Talk.